What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Jenks Island Podcast, the only NFL podcast where Year takes from a washed-up Division III cornerback and his good friend. I'm back again with my co-host, Ty McGee. In today's episode, we're going to be giving our tiers for the running backs for the 2025 NFL season. We're going to be doing all the running backs, running back ones, and there might be like a couple here and there running back twos if we think there's going to be like a split backfield or something like that. But I think this running back episode, when we're talking about some of these players for the 2025 season, a lot of these running backs at the top could be a few guys that are a little bit older or up there in age. Like I know one of them is. And then also like Saquon Barkley, when we're ranking him, like he's obviously going to go in a certain range, but is he going to reproduce what he did last season? And then we have a bunch of young stars coming up as well. So this running back tier list is going to be a lot of fun to make. But starting it off, Ty, right off the bat, we got James Conner here. What is going to be your thoughts on James Conner?
Yeah, I think James Conner's a serviceable back. I think, like when he can stay healthy, he definitely shows some flashes, but I don't think he's ever truly, been a Pro Bowl level back. I think there's maybe been like 1 or 2 years where, okay, maybe he was worthy, but the longevity of his career, he's been really banged up the past couple of years. And that, going back to the Kyler Murray stuff, like it's hurt the Cardinals, right? Because he'll have really good games and then, he's out for 4 weeks. So, he's a good back. He doesn't provide too much in the passing game. He's more of that bigger body, like kind of thumper guy. Gets a lot of touchdowns because when you're, he's tall, he's big, a good guy to give to the ball on the goal line. But I just don't think he's quite at that Pro Bowl caliber level, especially when we look at a lot of the other guys in this list.
Yeah, and you look right behind him in this. We're not going to rank him, but Benson right behind him even was threatening to take some of his reps last season. And maybe this year we kind of see that happen. But James Conner, like you just said, like he is a solid running back in this league. He's a little bit all over the place. Like some games he'll blow up, some games he won't as much. And then his injuries also have given him some problems throughout his career. So I think serviceable for this season is definitely the right spot. And maybe if we were doing later towards the fantasy season once in a couple months from now, we'll start doing maybe some like fantasy rankings, and maybe his spot is a little bit different, but just because his fantasy value is all right, because like you just said, he's getting those touchdowns on this team. But for as far as actual ranking running backs goes, I think serviceable is a solid spot for him. Next, we got Bijan Robinson. So for me, I think he'd be the top of Pro Bowl caliber running backs. I think he'd be like at the top of this right now. I don't see him getting an all pro at the moment with the Falcons offense. I think they kind of not waste him at times, but they mess up some of his reps. And I want to see that kind of change this season. I think the last couple we've seen him blow up, and then a few plays later or whatever, they won't give him the ball, things like that. He just, the consistency and touches for him are something that I really want to improve. And as a Saints fan, of course, I'm always praying on his downfall, not injury wise, things like that, but stats wise. But I think this is a guy that can really be the top of that Pro Bowl caliber list and possibly make an all pro team. I definitely wouldn't put it past him. What are your thoughts on him, Ty?
Yeah, I mean, Bijan coming into the league, right? Like unlimited potential. He was talked
Yeah.
about it kind of similar way that, they talked about Saquon when he was coming out. So I think he'll be at that Pro Bowl caliber. I think he could be an all pro back if the Falcons use him correctly, right? Like he is such a dynamic weapon in the passing game as well. If they just deployed him kind of like an Alvin Kamara, he could put up really crazy numbers.
Yeah.
I think it is, a good sign for him that there were some talks about trading Algier this offseason. So, maybe they're like, okay, it's time to, move on from him, or at least move on from giving him touches and go with the full Bijan Robinson show. I mean, we'll really see this year, they have a young quarterback. They'd be smart to give him a lot of, just pepper the ball to Bijan, hand the ball off to Bijan. And then, once it starts to open up, then you go down the field to Pitts, to Drake London, to Mooney, et cetera. But I think this is a really good spot for him. He's going to be, one of the better backs for the next decade, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, no, I think, man, I think Bijan has, just like you just said, coming into the NFL, had all the potential in the world, and he still does. I just want to see the Falcons be able to utilize it a little bit more this season. Next, we got King Henry. Ty. Where are you going to put him on your list?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy money. He's going to be an all-pro back. He's always a threat to run for 2,000 yards. I'm interested to see how Baltimore uses him this year. I think in year one, it was kind of the feeling out. There's times where they weren't giving him the ball in crunch time, and that's
Yeah.
when you give the ball to Derrick Henry because he's worn defenses down, and at that point it's just easy money for him. But I'm interested to see how they use him. The dynamic between him and Lamar in the run game. But he, even last year, right? He put up insane numbers, uh, even not being the focal point of the offense. So, he just never seems to age either, right? He just keeps going. I think he's right around maybe over the
He's
30 mark now.
he's 31 years old now.
Yeah, and so at 30 years old, right, that's when a lot of the backs, 28,
Yeah.
29, that's when the backs start to slow down. We didn't really see that from Derrick Henry. The only slowing down was, how Todd Monken used him. So he's going to be at the top of the top for a
Yeah.
couple more years.
Yeah, and then it's a crazy thing to say because we've been seeing this whole discussion and across the NFL, across ESPN, NFL Network, things like that. Of the NFL is not. There's a huge drop off for the age of running backs. You're either really really good, and then once you hit like 27, teams are like, all right, we're gonna let you go. We're done with you because we can tell that you're aging, whatever. Derrick Henry just left the Titans because the Titans didn't want to pay him, right? And he goes to the Ravens, and we see that he's still the same old back that he used to be, just mowing guys down and just eating guys for lunch and gaining yards after yards and yards. And he can still break off those long runs, which people thought that he wasn't going to be able to do anymore. So, like you just said, I think King Henry going to be an All-Pro this year, and the offense only got better. The defense only got better, so he's going to have more time on the field. So I think Derrick Henry is really going to have a break, another just huge season. Next, we got James Cook. This is a guy that, listen, he wants to get paid, right? He wants top running back dollars in the NFL right now. And for me, I think James Cook, very, very solid player. And I think he's going to be a solid running back in the league for a little while. But to me, he's not as skilled as the guys that are getting paid the amount that he wants. I think he's still a very skilled running back. So I'm going to put him in the lower range Pro Bowl caliber, but he's demanding like highest paid running back money in the league. And I just don't see the Bills needing to pay him that. I don't think that he is that skilled. I think Ray Davis is a little bit a solid running back for them. And if they see that he can be a true running back one, then they're not going to pay him that money because you can just replace him with Davis and see how it goes from there. But I think James Cook is still really solid. Ty, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I like James Cook a lot. I mean, I got to see it, first person in
Mhm.
that playoff game against Denver. He really, really dominated, and I think if you put him on a different offense, someone else is going to be willing to pay him the money for one.
Yeah.
Um, I think if you put him in a different offense, he'd really have a chance to be one of those, top paid guys because I think the way the Buffalo offense runs, it's really around Josh Allen. The
It's
run
true.
game, the pass game, it's all around Josh. So with that offense, it's kind of just plug and play.
Mhm.
Obviously, it helps to have really good, Stephon Diggs. We've seen it, James Cook. It helps the offense, but it's not as important, right? We saw with the receiving, with their receivers this past year. Khalil Shakir was their wide receiver one, and Josh Allen had an MVP season. So I think James Cook he's probably on that bottom tier Pro Bowl caliber right now, just based on probably usage rate. But
Yeah.
if he ended up on another team paid him, where he was more of a featured back. I really think that he could be deserving of that top tier money.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. I think with the Bills, like you just said, they kind of utilize their offense completely different than a lot of other teams. They spread the ball to absolutely everyone, running backs even like Ty Johnson. You're seeing getting some touchdowns and valuable moments, and even like Ray Davis, he's doing a lot of stuff too on the offense. So James Cook is getting less touches, things like that. It could influence the way even myself I view him on the field. So that's a great point that you brought up there. Next, we got Chuba Hubbard. Ty, this is a guy that's been a little bit all over the place in his career. So where are you going to put him on this list?
Yeah, for me, I see Chuba Hubbard as a young star. I see him, kind of last year was a big year for him. He got paid. He had a fantastic year on a team that, was kind of middling for the most of the year until the end of the year. They really took off.
Hmm.
I see him continuing to on that trajectory. Right, this Panthers team is getting better. Bryce Young's getting better. They made some additions to the offense. Canales has another season there. I think these are all really, really good signs for Chuba Hubbard. If the pass game can get open, it opens up the boxes. You see less 8-man boxes. And I think, yeah, I like Hubbard. I liked him in college. I think he was very successful at Oklahoma State. He has the potential. And he showed out last year. I think, what
Yeah.
him before last year, we would have probably saw him, maybe serviceable, maybe even an ass. Because, I mean, we probably wouldn't have been talking about him, honestly, as a starter. But I think last year was a huge year for him. He got the money, and yeah, I see him kind of on a rise right now.
Yeah, no, I gotta agree with you here. I think he is definitely a young star, and I think some of the fumbling issues he had last year, he'll be able to clean that up, and I think this year he'll just get right back to where he was at, and he'll still be a very solid player for the Panthers. Next, we got DeAndre Swift, a guy that, if we're talking fantasy value this year, with Ben Johnson coming over, I think his fantasy value skyrocketed off of after last season at least. But I think for him, his skill level is still the same. So I'm going to put him in serviceable. I'm going to put him below James Conner because I think James Conner is a better running back at this point in time. He's a little bit older than Swift, but still, I think DeAndre Swift can do it, and I think he will be able to succeed in this Ben Johnson offense because of the way he schemes around his running backs. But I think DeAndre Swift, talent-wise, he's an average running back in the league right now, so I'm going to put him below James Conner. Do you disagree with that one at all?
No, I think it's fair. I think he's just kind of struggled even when he's been in
Yeah.
situations where he should succeed. Right in Philly, he was kind of fine, and then we saw Saquon come in and run for 2,000 yards. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there's even been some rumblings that Monongai might take over some carries from him, from what I've heard from Bears OTAs. So he could even be a late post preseason cut.
Mhm.
One of those fat cuts that Monongai has a lot of success in the preseason. Swift isn't really a need. I don't really see that happening because I imagine Ben Johnson wanting to run a two-back system and Swift
Mhm.
being more of that Gibbs
Exactly.
type and Monongai being more of the David Montgomery type. But he's at risk of losing some carries at least.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I just think he is at 100% a serviceable running back in this league. It's just the matter of I just don't think he's extremely talented running back. I think he'll have value in that offense with Ben Johnson, especially in that dual running back scheme, though. Next, we got Chase Brown. Ty, this is a really interesting one because he showed some flashes last year. So, what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I also think he's a young star. I think, he took a big step up when we saw Zach Moss go out last year and really just took over that job. I think coming into year two here, this is, his job. He's going to continue to have a lot of success with those two guys on the outside because
Mhm.
the boxes are open, right? So it's going to be a lot easier for him to run the football. And also, if they're behind, I mean, we saw it all last year with that defense being so bad, he was just getting peppered
Yeah.
targets all over, right? Like they're double teaming the guys on the outside. They have to score. They're throwing the football. So he's just getting peppered targets. I mean, when we talk about him for a fantasy guy, he's awesome to have in fantasy. I had him in like
Oh,
two
yeah.
leagues last year because it's just all those dink and dunks. If you're in a PPR league, it's huge. But I think he's got a lot of promise too. I would probably put him below Hubbard because I don't know, like they like P Ryan a lot. He's been there before. Zach Moss, maybe he comes back healthy. I do think it's the Chase Brown backfield this year, but you just never know. And that Cincy O line's not great, but he showed a lot of promise, especially towards the last half of that season.
Yeah, I think I would put him slightly like right above Hubbard. I think they're definitely close, and I definitely see the argument either way. I just think Chase Brown, I love the way he plays, and I think he's a little bit more versatile than Hubbard. I think that passing game, he's truly a weapon for Burrow in that. But I think either way is perfectly,
It's tough,
um,
yeah.
yeah, it's perfectly fine either way. I just think he is truly a young star, and I think this fantasy year is truly going to be a breakout season, even after last season. The numbers he put up. Now at the Browns, there's a couple guys that you could pick from here for RB1. It's either going to be Judkins or Sampson. It's going to be Judkins most likely. Jerome Ford is still obviously on the team as well. Quinshon Judkins, I'd put him in young stars as well because I think he's going to have that big of a role in Cleveland. We see them what they do with their running backs. Ty, would you put him in? Would you just put him in promising prospects, or do you think he would be a young star as well?
Yeah, for me, not having seen him and like, him being in a loaded backfield, not
A little bit of a
loaded, but
split.
a clouded backfield, I'd probably put him in the promising prospects.
Okay,
I
yeah,
think
that's fair.
Samson's gonna get a lot more, touches than
I
we
love
can,
Sampson. Yeah,
really imagine. I think they drafted both of them for a reason, right? They're gonna use both of them. Stefanski loves to run the football. The quarterback situation's unclear, especially if they have a young quarterback. So I like Jokins as a promising prospect. Definitely has the ability if he takes over that backfield to be a young
yeah.
star. But we kind of saw him in college, right? Like he had a lot of success at Ole Miss as the sole back, but then when he came to Ohio State, I mean, him and Trevion Henderson had a lot of success as a dual backfield. So maybe they try to replicate that with Sampson, but I do think Judkins is the better back.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think when I did my running back rankings as far as this season's draft prospects went. I'm pretty sure I had him a little bit lower on my board than both you and Hammer, and I think it was mainly because I didn't see as much versatility from him, which a lot of people like hate it. I know you were not a fan. I think Judkins is going to be a solid running back in that offense, especially. I think him and Samson have a lot of potential in that offense. I was really big on Samson going into this offseason. So I'm excited to see what they both do. I just think Judkins is going to take over just because the Cleveland Browns, I think they really are going to go back to that running game a little bit more this year. I think last year you had Chubb coming out of injury. Ford was your lead back. Like they didn't really have much going for him. I think Judkins comes in and really changes that for them. Next, Ty, this is going to be your pick of choice. Who do you think is going to be the Cowboys running back one after the preseason going into the regular season?
Yeah, I think going into the season, I do think it's going to be Javante. I think Jaden Blue can maybe push for some reps, but it's going to be big for him to see, how well does he hold on to the football in the preseason?
Yeah.
Because one of the big concerns with Blue was just the hanging onto the ball. He's definitely a weapon in the pass game, but Javante's he's the vet. He's a pretty good pass blocker. I'm gonna put Javante in ass personally. I Last year was really bad,
Yeah.
really really bad. Denver has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, especially run blocking. Really good coaching with Zach Strief being our O line coach. The Sean Payton offense, they love to run the football. All of our backs had a lot more success in yards per game than Javante Williams did. Estime looked good in doses. Jaleel looked good in doses. Even Tyler Beatty looked better in some doses. Like Javante, I don't know. He's kind of fallen off since that knee injury a couple years ago. I really had a lot of hope for him. I hope that he can have success in Dallas, right? There's like no
Yeah.
hard feelings with him leaving. I definitely wanted to move on from him, but just based on like last year and the trajectory since that knee injury, I just can't put him in a serviceable area with James Conner and DeAndre Swift. Like he's just not that type of back for me.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, you might lose out to any of those backs, Miles Sanders, Jaden Blue, Phil Maffa. I
Yeah.
mean, if you lose to Deuce, like there's a chance he's not on this roster, right? If so, I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a fair valuation. And I think with Javante, he is like a solid running back, and I think the Cowboys, a lot of running backs you could see go there can succeed just because of the way they run the football and the way they like running the football. So you can see some good numbers. But Javante himself, just the way he's came back after injury, it's not the same. He's not the same after that injury, and he's definitely lost some of that talent. So I think that's a fair spot to put him in that ass tier. And maybe ass sounds a little bit harsh on the podcast, but I think we have it down there just because they're below everyone else. So I think that's the right spot for him. And quick story about Zach Strief, the O line coach for you guys. I got when I was at training camp at the Greenbrier when I was in West Virginia for the Saints. They would like do everyone would walk down this hill down to the practice field for like walkthroughs or whatever. And I got to like stand next to Zach Strief as we were walking down. Just got to talk with him. He gave me like a visor. It is his head was huge, and I'm like this little 4'5" little midget, and I'm walking around. He puts it on my head, and it just falls onto my neck, and it's just a massive hat. But Zach Strief is the guy. It's awesome that he's coaching you guys, and I think he's doing a great job down
Yeah.
there as well. Next tie, obviously Javante being the former Broncos, but now I'm going to go to the Broncos. So your guy RJ Harvey, a guy that I said in the running back rankings was one of my favorite running backs in this class, a guy that I think could truly be a bell cow back. Extremely, extremely high on him. I thought it could be the next Alvin Kamara even. Then he goes to the Broncos. Sean Payton clearly sees something now I'm seeing as well. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough because the guy that's not on here, bringing in J.K. Dobbins,
Yeah.
really, muds up like some of his, carries and his touches. I think RJ is explosive enough that at the end of the day, he's gonna make J.K. Dobbins more of an RB2. Kind of the situation when Alvin
Mhm.
Kamara came in and Mark Ingram took kind of a back seat to Kamara. So I, RJ's tough with me because I think he's going to split carries. I'm going to put him in the promising prospects above Judkins. I think there's a lot of promise there. I think it's too soon to put him in the young stars. For me, I think there's one guy in this rookie class that's easily a young star for me. Right,
Yeah.
we'll get to him later, but I think Harvey. Promising prospects make sense. If we had J.K. Dobbins, I'd probably put Dobbins at the top of serviceable as well. Because when he's healthy, he's really, really good back.
He's very
He had a
solid.
lot of
Yeah.
success last year. But I couldn't put Dobbins in a young star because he can't stay healthy. Similar to Connor for me, right? Can't stay healthy. So, but for RJ, I think promising prospect and one of the most promising prospects is a great spot for him.
Yeah, no, I think RJ Harvey, like before Dobbins came over, he was one of my top fantasy pickups. Like he would have been at one of the tops of my list because he'd been getting so many reps, and I think he is truly that versatile as a running back. So I think he's going to be really great for you guys. I think promising prospects is a great spot for him. Next, we got Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, he's going to go. I think he's either top of Pro Bowl or bottom of All Pro with Montgomery there still. I'm going to put him at the top of Pro Bowl because I think Montgomery is still going to take some of those touchdowns away, things like that, and some of that stat production. So that limits his All Pro ability a little bit, but I think he could still possibly do that, right? But I just think he truly is the definition of the top of a Pro Bowl, that Pro Bowl category. He's young. He does absolutely everything on the field. I loved him coming out of college, and he has not let anyone down. So Jahmyr Gibbs, top of Pro Bowl caliber. What are your thoughts on that, Ty? Do you want to is that good, or you want to go move on to Montgomery?
No, I think that's solid. I really like the spot. I mean, he could definitely be an all pro. He's got a ton of talent. I think the other crazy part is I'm going to put David Montgomery at the bottom of Pro Bowl caliber. I mean, the fact that
That's
they have
fair.
two Pro Bowl caliber running backs is insane. I know they love the run the football. Montgomery, he gets a ton of touchdowns because he is truly their goal line guy.
Yeah.
And despite him being a big back, he still brings a lot in the passing game. He's really a back that's taken a huge step up since he left Chicago. Obviously, part of that is just the offense is really good, and the duo with him and Gibbs is a great complementary duo. But I think he's taken a step up if he can be healthy. Him and Gibbs both could really have amazing seasons where Gibbs is 1,000-yard receiver, 1,000-yard back, and Montgomery could be 1,000-yard back and have like 15 touchdowns. Like it's that's the type of backs that both these guys are, and the ceiling that they really have is so high.
Yeah, and you'll never hear me saying a bad thing about David Montgomery. Last year, he was the third leg of a first touchdown score, and he won me $1,300 on a $5 bet. So, David Montgomery, thank you for that. Never will ever say a bad thing about you in your future. Next, we got Josh Jacobs. I think he's truly going to be a guy that is just getting a lot of carries for this Packers team, just like he did last year. And I'm going to put him. This is tough. This is tough. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler, that Pro Bowl category range. I'm gonna put him above Bijan, below Gibbs, and I think that's because Bijan Robinson, like we just said, I'm a little bit still worried about the way they're going to use him this year. I think he'll still have a great season as per expected, but I think Josh Jacobs, like they're just going to feed him again this year. He's absolutely one of the best running backs in football. He was slept on leaving the Raiders. I don't think people expected enough from him going into the Packers, and I think he did exactly what I expect him to do at least. But Ty, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I saw Gibbs or excuse me, Jacobs for years in
Yeah.
the division, and he just always had a ton of success against us because he is an awesome back, and I'm glad he got to leave that crap hole in Oakland, now Vegas, and go to a real franchise. But listen, the way that they utilized him last year was awesome. I only imagine that continuing. He's a bell cow back, and he's going to continue to be that. Um, I think we saw him get his first receiving touchdown as well last year, so that was pretty awesome. Seeing him, more involved. He actually has a ton of receptions and yards, but so it's not that he's not involved in the passing game. He just has actually never scored a receiving touchdown, which is wild. But I think it's a good spot because him and Gibbs. I mean, honestly, they both have all pro potential.
Yeah,
They're like
definitely.
Pro Bowl locks pretty much. But I think that's a good spot for him.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's just tough. It's tough to pick that other all pro because, like in the NFC and some of these other like spots, there's gonna be a lot of running backs that are putting up great candidate great resumes to get all pros on both AFC and NFC outside of Henry. But I'm interested to see who gets one of those other spots. Next, we got Mixon for the Houston Texans. Ty, where are you gonna put him? He's an interesting guy for this tiers list.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like what happens with Nick Chubb coming into town. But I mean, they did have Damian Pierce last year, and that really didn't affect Mixon. I'm gonna put
Yeah,
Mixon in the Pro Bowl caliber, and I'm gonna put him above. I'm gonna put him above James Cook. I think Bijan brings more, and I think Bijan, Jacobs, and Gibbs bring more to the table as like kind of complete backs. But Mixon, I mean, he had a fantastic season last year,
Mhm.
despite, the Texans' offensive line being garbage. Unfortunately for him, their offensive line seemingly got way worse.
Which is
So
absolutely insane, yeah.
yeah, so that's not great. You don't love to see that. Not good for him or CJ Stroud. But I still think, I mean, he's never really had a good offensive line. Go back to Cincinnati; they weren't great. You know, last year they weren't great. I think it just gets a little muddier with Chubb coming to town and how many carries do they give him. But I still think Mixon's that he's a Pro Bowl level back. He's going to get a ton of touchdowns too. Because think about it, right? They're still the Houston Texans. They're still a good offense. They're in a bad division. They're gonna score. They're gonna get to the goal line. Joe Mixon will get a lot of touchdowns. So I like him as a Pro Bowl caliber back.
Yeah, no, I think that's, the probably the right range. I think that's where I would put him too. I just think he and I believe Nick Chubb signed there a couple of weeks or a week ago.
That's what I'm saying, Chubb, yeah.
Yeah, Chubb went there, so I think that might take a couple of touchdowns or something away from him, but not too much production. Chubb's a little bit coming off of an injury still, and I think Mixon will truly be that RB1 for that team. So I think that's the right spot. Next we got Jonathan Taylor, a guy that again, when healthy, is an absolute stud, but it's the question of when he's healthy because there's a lot of games that he's missing. And so I'm gonna put him in the Pro Bowl caliber range, but I'm gonna put him below Cook, above Montgomery because he is the RB1 for that team. So I think that kind of gives him an advantage over Montgomery. But I'll put him below Cook because of the injury issues, things like that. But when he's healthy, this guy absolutely balls out. And this year, with the quarterback issues that the Colts are having at the moment, they might be a little bit more reliant on that run game. So he's going to get a lot more carries as well. So I like the way the season's setting up for Jonathan Taylor. I think he has all the potential to reach that the true Pro Bowl caliber range and even possibly an All Pro, but he needs to live up to the or get past the injury concerns that I have with him. So I think that's where I put him. Where would you put him, Ty?
Yeah, I think it's fair. It's just like, he doesn't have a great situation around him. I think if
Yeah.
Daniel Jones starts, maybe it's a little bit better because, teams aren't gonna be packing the box as much because Ayer's just he's just not a good quarterback. We put him in ass for a reason. So I think Jones maybe brings a little bit more to the table as a passer. But yeah, it's just tough. He's got to stay healthy and he's got to have a good situation around him. It's just I don't know,
He,
sucks for
he's
him.
yeah, he's in a bad spot. Yeah, you got to feel for the guy.
Yeah.
Next we got Travis Etienne for the Jaguars. Ty, this one, I mean, we look at the tier list even. There's 5 guys on this list. I don't think the last or six guys, I miscounted that. Bigsby and Tootin, even Robinson. Like there's all a few guys that could possibly take some reps from him. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah. I mean, it just I don't know. Last year was awful, and it kind of
Yeah.
came out of nowhere because he had been, he was one of those young stars, maybe possible Pro Bowl caliber type of
Mhm.
guy for the first couple years of his career. Last year was awful. I don't I had to take it for what his value was last year. I'm gonna put him in ass, and I think I'm gonna put him maybe above Javante.
Yeah.
Like he's a little bit more of a versatile back, but I just can't put him. Last year was I don't know. It was really bad. Like serviceable. Like you have good years every year, right? You're not really letting us down. Last year was bad. I wouldn't even be surprised if Bigsby or Tootin ended up taking
Exactly.
over the backfield. But I mean, even if they do, right? Like Tootin maybe like very low promising prospect, but not really.
Yeah.
Bigsby, I would maybe put Bigsby in serviceable, but like probably also not because we've only seen a little bit from him. And like,
Mhm.
it was like, oh, Bigsby's the guy you got to add in fantasy. And then it was like, okay, never mind.
They
The
went
next
away
week he
yeah.
had like 3 points. And so I think, this whole backfield is just not good.
Yeah, when Bigsby went off last year, I was, like, buying all the stock in fantasy, and then it dropped off again. But now the Jaguars, like we've seen, like, they're bringing in this whole new regime. It could change everything. Maybe ETN takes a big leap and gets out of that ass tier. But right now, I think that's kinda where he's at based on last year's performance and what we've seen from him and the potential of the guys below him. Next, we got Isaiah Pacheco. I'm gonna put Pacheco in serviceable because I think he is a serviceable running back. When he plays, I mean, we see that obviously he has the angry run style, things like that. That's getting him a lot more popular than I think he would be if he didn't have it. I think any running back you put in that Chiefs offense, we see them succeed year after year. So I think the definition of serviceable is whoever is the running back one for the Chiefs until they get a guy that is truly a real star. but I think Isaiah Pacheco is probably the top of serviceable. He's still a good player, still a good running back in the league, probably mid-range, 16th, 15 range. But I think serviceable is the right range for him. What are your thoughts on that, Ty? You're
Yeah,
closer to it.
I think it's a good spot for him. I mean, like, he could teeter on young star, but again, like, he's very replaceable in that backfield.
Yeah.
I don't think he brings as much in the passing game as some of those guys in the young stars. It just like you said, it's the angry runs. Like, he's a hard runner, and I love that for him, and like it's worked out well for him. But it's just I don't know. He's a serviceable back.
Yeah. He's replaceable. And I
Yeah,
think that's a good word to use for it. Now, Ty, getting back to the guy that you said is the one rookie that is definitely in young stars, Ashton Genty. Where would you put him on this?
I'm gonna put him above everyone. I'm gonna put him at the top of young stars. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of hype coming in around Ashton Genty, and for obvious reasons, and for very good reasons, right? He had a ton of success last year. Boise State really should have been the Heisman in my eyes. Had success against really good teams. He went off against Oregon. He was decent against Penn State, but that's a really, really good defense. Interested to see, how Pete Carroll uses him. Pete Carroll's had a lot of success with backs over his career, right? Go back to USC, the Lendell White, Reggie Bush backfield. Go back to Seattle with Marshawn Lynch. Kenneth Walker, Chris Carson was there for a couple years. They were good. So
Chris
he's had a lot
Carson.
of,
I forgot
yeah,
about him.
throwback, right? That neck injury really killed him, but
Yeah.
he's had a lot of success with a lot of different backs. And Genty, outside of the USC guys, and probably outside of Marshawn Lynch, he's one of the most talented, right? A ton of talent.
Definitely.
He's coming in with Chip Kelly too, who runs a college offense. Probably going to be more similar to what Genty's used to. I think they made some solid additions. With Geno Smith at quarterback and some of the other things. So it'll take the pressure off of Genty. It's nice that he has Brock Bowers, who was one of the best rookies in the NFL last year. Jacoby Myers, who's a reliable guy on the outside. They don't have the best offense, but I think it'll make it life easier on Genty, and he could really come in and just surprise us all and win Rookie of the Year and be a Pro Bowl type of guy. But I have high expectations for him.
Yeah. No, I think like we expect, right, this season, Geno Smith's the quarterback. You still have Brock Bowers. You drafted some young receivers. You still have Jacoby Myers. I think Ashton Genty is really going to be the focal piece of that offense outside of Bowers. I think they're just going to be handing him the ball off a good amount in this year. He has the chance to even be an All-Pro in his rookie season. So I think obviously the top of young stars is 100% the right spot for him. Next, we got Najee Harris and Amarion Hampton. For Ty, who do you think is gonna be the RB1 for that team? Like the more reps. I think it would be
Yeah.
Hampton, but let me hear your
I,
thoughts.
th- I think Hampton's going to end up beating him out. I think maybe
Yeah.
right away. Again, this is another situation where like Najee starts off right away, and then the younger guy maybe starts to chip away at the reps. But I think they're going to have a decent split because Gus Edwards, when healthy last year, got a good amount of carries with J.K. I think they're going to evenly split them pretty well. But I don't think
Mhm.
because neither of them brings a ton in the pass game, right? I think they're both pretty good in the pass game, solid hands, but they're not going to make you miss guys. They're bigger cats, so they don't really differentiate themselves as much. So that's why I think it'll be more of like an even split between the two.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'll put Harris at the top of serviceable right now with that split backfield a little bit, limiting a little bit. And we've said before, he's the king of consistency right now when it comes to running backs. He's going to get you 1,000 yards rushing. And so whatever offense you put him in, if you give him the ball a lot, he's going to get you those 4 yards per carry thing, like close to that every single run. And so I think he's the top of, like, he's a definition of the top of serviceable for me. And then I put Hampton in the promising prospects because of the split backfield as well. I think that kind of limits where we would view him if he was the lead running back, if he got drafted to the Browns or something like that. That might change. But I think for him, I would put him probably I'd probably put him below Harvey in the promising prospects range. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Hampton as a overall back and like overall prospect, right?
Mhm.
Everyone obviously had him above Harvey, but it's about fit, right? And I think Harvey's fit in the Denver offense obviously makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think Dobbins, obviously, he's more injury prone. So Najee's been, like we said, the king of consistency. So it's going to
Yeah.
be harder for Hampton to really become RB1 and not have to split carries at all, in any capacity, whether it's even 60-40, right? So, I think his ceiling's hampered a little bit by them adding Najee, but Najee's only there on a 1-year deal, so, you know, after next season, yeah, that could be the Hampton show.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I think promising prospects. Like you see that this after this year, if he obviously takes a leap and then you see Najee leave, immediately he jumps up in the tiers. So I think it's a good spot for him for this season, but before the season starts. But it could all change afterwards. Next, we got Kyron Williams. Ty, this is a guy that we saw fumble issues kind of take away from his season last year. But what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, the fumbling is obviously an issue, but I'm a huge fan of Kyren Williams.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put him in the Pro Bowl caliber, right below Bijan Robinson. I
Okay.
think in that offense, the really, really good offense. Again, when you have two guys on, it's similar to Chase Brown, right? Like when you have two guys on the outside that are as talented as Puka and Devontae, it really opens up the box for you. And then you have a creative offensive play caller in Sean McVay. Kyren Williams, he's had a ton of success in his couple years in the NFL, a lot of touchdowns. The fumbling has been the big issue, but you expect guys to be working on there in the offseason, next season coming a little bit better at that. But he's been really, really good, and it's some might say it's an easy offense to be good in, but at the end of the day, if you're producing, we can't we can't judge you for that. So
Yeah. No, I think Kyron Williams. Like I traded. So I made this mistake after Josh Jacobs wasn't scoring for the Packers in Dynasty, and Kyron Williams was scoring for the Rams a good amount, and he was younger than Josh Jacobs. I go and trade Kyron Williams for Josh Jacobs in Dynasty, and we all know how the rest of the season kind of played out. Josh Jacobs obviously barely won a game without scoring the rest of the season, and Kyron Williams had a few games where he struggled. So I want to see Kyron Williams bounce back and truly take that right back to where he was at the beginning of the season, and I think he'll be able to do that this year, especially with Devontae Adams. Like, adding a piece like that to the offense, it changes the way the offense is viewed. They might be able to run play action a little bit more, take some, and then run the ball after that, mix it all up on the offense side of the ball. I think Kyron Williams is going to be right back to where he was before. Next, we got Devon Achane, obviously for the Dolphins, a guy that a lot of people, especially the fantasy heads, love. So, Ty, what are your thoughts on him?
yeah, for me, I mean, like there's a lot of potential there for him. He's a fast back, but I just don't think we've really seen it all come together yet,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes he was competing with Raheem Mostert for touchdowns, carries like towards the goal line. Then he's hurt. I'm gonna put him in the serviceable range. I'm gonna put him below. I'm gonna put him below Pacheco. I just think I haven't seen enough from him. Like he just hasn't done anything. I don't even. It's just yeah. With the injuries and the competing for bad. Like that offense was bad. I can't put him in the young stars. I just don't think. Sure, he has potential, but those young stars, like we've seen it put together for a whole season. I just think I'm not a big fan of him, honestly.
Wow. Yeah, no, I see. I would have him probably at the bottom of that young star list of the guys we have in there right now. I think that's kind of the spot I'd put him in, is right below those young stars. Serviceable. I'd put him above all these guys because I think he is more talented. But like you said, I mean, the injuries have limited his career, and we haven't seen him put together a full season. And I think that offense as well, with Tua's inconsistency, things like that, it really has limited him. I think if he goes somewhere else, he could be a really, really solid running back. And maybe again, that comes back to our talk about fit, things like that. That changes it. So I'd put him at the bottom of serviceable, but I don't, or not the bottom of serviceable, the bottom of young stars. But I think serviceable as well. Like until he puts together a full season, we'll see how that plays out. But I think that's a fine spot at the moment.
I mean, he hasn't had a 1,000-yard season, right? That's the other
Yeah,
thing. 800 and 900 yards. So without having a 1,000-yard season, it's like Najee Harris. Or am I going to put him above Najee Harris, who's had 1,000 yards
that's
and is
true.
top 5 in rushing yards since he came to the NFL? Like,
That is true.
probably not. I can't really do that. So yeah,
Yeah, no, I think that like we said, like he's been limited by both injuries and outside factors. I just want to see him be able to get past all of those and really take that leap, and then he would jump tiers for sure. Next, we got Aaron Jones. I mean, he's a serviceable guy. I think you can kind of play him and be a solid. Um, I'm debating between putting him above or below DeAndre Swift. I'm gonna put him below because I think he's a little bit older. We've seen him more banged up recently. And I think the Vikings offense, he gets featured some games and then sometimes he doesn't. He falls off on and as far as fantasy and production goes. Whereas DeAndre Swift, I think this year is really going to be a lot more productive for him. And I think he's younger and a little bit more talented at this state of his career. So I'm going to put Swift above Jones into serviceable. Ty, would you switch that up at all?
Yeah, I mean, like between him, Connor, and Swift, right? It
Yeah.
really just depends on your flavor. I think I like Aaron Jones, but it's like they do have a rookie quarterback, so like, or again, what's that offense going to look like?
Yeah.
Aaron Jones, like you said, getting a little older, more banged up. Are they going to feature maybe Ty Chandler a little bit more? What's that offense going to look like? So I think it's a fine spot for him.
Let's see. Who is next? Oh, so we got Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson. Ty, I want to see where would you put both of those, or who was going to be the RB1 this year, and then where would you put both of those guys?
Again, I think this is another situation where the vet will come in and start right away,
Mhm.
but Travion definitely has the ability to chip away. Ramondre's been pretty good so far in his career. I think he's a serviceable back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put him probably at the bottom of serviceable. I think a lot of those guys are better than him and have been more consistent. But fine back, right? I think he was good for Drake May last year. He did get benched a little bit there. I think he had the fumbling issue as well, but
Yeah, he did.
um, I think Travion, for me, promising prospects. I'm going to put him right above Judkins, but I think he has the potential to maybe be at the top of that list. Just depends on what does that New England offense look like, right? I talked a lot about, the fit, right? RJ Harvey, great fit. We have a lot of hope for that offense to be good. Same with the Chargers. We know that offense will be good. It's just like what Drake May year 2, does he take the step up? New coach, some new weapons around him, new offensive line. So there's a lot of like new in this New England offense. So I just want to see how can Travion latch on and how does Drake May utilize him? How does Josh McDaniels utilize him, especially in the passing game? Travion's an electric guy. We saw him catch that screen pass in the national championship game, I believe it was, and take it like 75 yards for a touchdown. So very electric back, and I think he has the potential to take this job over from Stevenson pretty early on in the season. But again, want to see what Josh McDaniels does with him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Travion is really he's Stevenson but better. Like he's a better fit for the offense. I think he's like a similar when I'm watching him play, obviously with the ball, I think Ramondre is a solid running back. He can do a little bit of everything, but he hasn't ever taken a leap. Like he has solid plays and solid capabilities, but he hasn't taken a leap throughout his career. And I've seen his fantasy value go all the way up from he was probably get like RB10 at some point when he was like peaking. And then this past season, he just really fell apart. And I think Travion Henderson's really just going to leap him pretty quickly into the season, go up. And then I don't think his head's ever going to look back. I think him and Drake May are going to have a good connection in that backfield, whether that be on dump offs, things like that. And he's going to have obviously great run ability behind the O line. So I think promising young prospect, and I think he could move up to young stars based on this season. We'll see how it plays out though. Let's see. Next, we got my team coming up. We got Alvin Kamara. This is going to take. I know Ty is going to call out bias. I know Hammer's going to call out bias. I know everyone's going to call out bias. I think at this point in time in his career, and with Kellen Moore coming over for this offense with a rookie quarterback, I'm going to put him right below Jonathan Taylor in the Pro Bowl category. He's obviously better than serviceable. We've seen what he's done in his career, and I think obviously last year to start the season before the O line starting getting more injured, he was at the top of the fantasy food chain. He was all the way up there with the top dogs like Saquon and Derrick Henry, and he was balling out week in, week out. The injuries happened, Derek Carr went down, and his fantasy value tanked because Clint Kubiak kind of shit himself on the offensive side of the ball, didn't know what to do with some of his players going down. But I think Alvin Kamara with Kellen Moore, with a reloaded offensive line, healthy team, rookie quarterbacks, or rookie quarterback, and then Spencer Rattler if he plays as well. I think Alvin Kamara could truly still be a Pro Bowl caliber running back. Still a good fantasy value. He's a good fantasy value in the late rounds for sure. So I'm going to put him at the bottom range of a Pro Bowl, but I think he's definitely above serviceable. Ty, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think he's in a similar situation as JT is, right? And like where they don't fit in serviceable, they don't quite fit at Pro Bowl caliber because of some of the situation around them and
Yeah.
where they are at in their career. Again, like you said, Kamara, I think, has a ton of potential just as like in the pass game, especially as a fantasy back, because he's going to have young quarterbacks that are probably going to want to dump it off, and he'll probably get a lot of carries. It's just tough because he's probably going to see a lot of 8-man boxes as well,
Yeah.
because with a young quarterback, that you're not really threatened by Tyler Shough
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Spencer
Yeah.
Rattler, at least early on, unless they show a ton. So I think it's a fine spot for him for now, just with him and JT being in that awkward zone of everything going on around them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's you said everything kind of similar on my mind. It's just situations limiting him, but I think Kellen Moore will give him the rock. They'll still give him the rock. So I'm interested to see what he does this season. Next, we got the Giants. We got Tracy Jr., Singletary, Scatabo. This is an interesting backfield this year, Ty. Who's going to be the RB1 and where would you put him?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be Tyron Tracy, and I think he showed us a lot last year. I'm gonna put him at the bottom of young stars, because I think he has a lot of potential. I think he'll remain at the bottom of young stars no matter who we put in here. But when he was healthy, he just kind of took off, and that was a bad offense. It was a bad, decent offensive line, but just not wasn't much going on there. He was clearly the better back over Singletary. Right when Singletary got touches, he just wasn't doing much with it.
Hmm.
He was, even worse than he was in Houston. In Houston, he was like, eh. Here, he was bad. But Tracy, I think he's got a lot of promise. It's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how they, manage Scatabo as well.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably push for some carries, but I think he'll push Singletary for those carries. I think Tracy's going to be the guy for them.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Tracy's gonna be the main back. I think Scatabo might get some red zone touches, things like and the goal line touches, some of those. But I just think Tyron Tracy, he has the talent. I went to the Giants Saints games last year, and he was showing that he had some talent on some of his runs. But I think the O line was kind of iffy. The offense itself was iffy. So I think this year, kind of with the offensive changes they're going through, I think with all these the 3 new quarterbacks coming over, I think he'll come in, be the same running back we saw last year and a little bit more on top of that. So I think bottom of young stars is an appropriate spot. Next we got Breece Hall. Ty. This one is an interesting choice. I'm going to put him in young stars because I don't think he's going to be Pro Bowl this year, maybe with Justin Fields and the new coaching changes, things like that. I'm going to put him, ooh, this is gonna give me hate. I'm not a huge Breece Hall guy. I would put him below Brown. But I want to hear your thoughts, Ty. Where would you put him kind of in that young stars range?
Yeah, it's tough because there's talks that they might do a kind of committee backfield. I
Mhm.
like Brees Hall a lot, right? He's when he's healthy, he's had a ton of success. I think he was kind of just it sucks. Him and Garrett Wilson, like with the Aaron Rodgers situation, they were
Yeah.
just kind of at the shitty end of the stick with that, and with the coaching staff and all the crazy changes going on in New York. I like what they did. I think Justin Fields is a good fit for them. I think bringing in Aaron Glenn, the offensive coordinator that they brought over, was the Lions tight end coach. Ben Johnson was the tight end coach. I think they'll probably, a similar trajectory. That guy, a lot of guys were kind of hot as him on him as being a possible offensive coordinator eventually, and then he got this job. So I think this New York offense is in a position to turn around, right? Like I think Justin Fields connecting again with his college, wide receiver. Aaron Glenn is a head coach that's a no nonsense guy. He's already kind of buckled down everything. There's no leaks in the building. The Aaron Rodgers show was just an insane time, but New York itself, the Jets itself, which is a crazy organization. But I think they've really buckled down this all season. It again depends. Can Brees be the lead in the committee, or is it a true committee where we're not seeing him that much? But I think he's a young star that has a lot of potential, and if they're not going to use him, trade him, get him out of there because he could be a
Yeah.
1,000-yard back and a 1,000-yard receiver in the same season. I mean, he could be a Jahmyr Gibbs light. Jahmyr Gibbs I think brings a little bit more to the table, but Brees Hall brings a ton. I wanted Denver to go after him early in the offseason. So
Yeah, I think going into last season, the expectations he had, they could have easily been met, and they weren't. And I think it was a little bit of a victim of situation type thing again there. I think Brees Hall, extremely talented, is a young star, 100%. but I just want to see him take that leap in this Jets offense. If he is a running back by committee, get him out of there, like you said. Let's see where he goes. So let us spread his wings and fly somewhere else. Next, obviously, Saquon Barkley, Ty. Where are you going to put him? I want to
I mean,
hear.
he's all pro. He's all pro,
Yeah,
and it's really a toss up between him and Derek, right? Like, I think you look at last year. I'm going to put him above Derek. He was 2,000-yard back,
yeah,
and there's a lot of continuity going on there in Philly. I feel good about that offense. I don't think a lot of pundits you kind of hear it like, oh, is he going to do the same thing next year? Like, I mean, you got to he's one of the best backs in the NFL, talent wise, and has been for years. He was just in a shitty situation with the Giants, and I think that's why we're questioning like, can he do it again?
yeah.
But he's going to continue to be the feature of that offense. So all pro guy for me.
Yeah, if anything, he'll have 1,700 rushing yards. Like he might drop off a few hundred, but like that's still an all pro level season. So yeah, I think he's definitely the top tier toss up between him and Henry, whatever your type of running back style is, whatever you want to prefer. Both of those guys are going to be all pros next year. I almost guarantee it, but we'll see how it plays out. Next time we got Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren, two guys. What are your thoughts? Who is going to be the RB1? And then where would you put him?
Yeah, again, like I just think with a lot of these backs, it's going to be the vet that comes in early on, and then the rookie who ends up taking over. I think Jalen Warren, Mike Tomlin loves him. He's kept around for a while. He was splitting with Najee when Najee was 1,000-yard back.
Mhm.
I'm going to put Jalen. I'm going to put him at the bottom of serviceable, right above Stevenson, because I think he is a serviceable back, but I just don't think he brings that much to the table. I do hope, though, that Pittsburgh kind of moves on to Caleb Johnson pretty fast. I think I think I'm going to put him above Judkins because I think he's going into a better situation. Um, I'm going to put him behind Travion, though, because I think Travion brings more to the table as a dynamic back. Caleb
Definitely.
Johnson, he's kind of just a one-cut guy, doesn't provide that much in the pass game. He's just a good back. We talked about him in the running back rankings. He just
Yeah.
kind of does what he does, right? Like he's a good back. He's I don't know.
He's
Nothing
it's
too special about him.
it's almost like a Najee Harris replacement for the
Yeah.
Steelers. It's a similar running style. Like when you're watching it, like even he has the same aesthetic as him with the dreads, everything like that. It's like you're watching Najee Harris. It's going to be similar for the Steelers fans out there. They might have some deja vu going on. I think, I think he's going to be a guy that can have that 1,000 yards every single season if you give him the ball. Like they probably will. Like you just said, Jalen Warren will probably get the majority of the reps to start, but I think as the season goes on, Caleb Johnson will take over that role. Next, we got Christian McCaffrey. This is obviously all pro caliber when he's healthy, right? And when he's not, he misses a huge chunk of the season and it limits him completely. Fantasy guys out there, are we picking him number one again this year? Is that something we're doing still, or are we finally moving on from that? I'm hoping everyone moved on from that. I said last year it's nuts to pick McCaffrey first overall, just based on right. He had an injury going into the season, and knowing McCaffrey's injury health history, it was ridiculous to gamble on it. I'd put him in Pro Bowl caliber still. I'm gonna put him above Kyron Williams, below Bijan Robinson. And mainly that's due to because of injuries. If you could guarantee me 17 games of a healthy Christian McCaffrey, he'd probably be in the all pro caliber range with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. But you can't guarantee me that right now. So I'm going to put him in Pro Bowl above Kyron Williams. I think it's a good spot. What are your thoughts, Ty?
Yeah, couldn't agree more, right? Like everything that it brings you in the pass game, in the run game. It's if he could have a fully healthy career, I mean, we'd be talking about one of the greatest running backs of all time,
Yeah.
just based on the numbers that he consistently puts up. Offensive player of the year, like probably year in year out. But it's just we can't get that out of McCaffrey, and it's really unfortunate because that one year that he was healthy in San Francisco, I mean, it was like phenomenal what he did. He was an oh boy candidate, and it's a shame. It's a real shame.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to see him bounce back this year. I think he will a little bit. We'll see if he's able to stay healthy. Hopefully he is, but we'll see how it plays out. Next time we got the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker. Again, a guy that, and I'll throw Charbonnet in there. I think Charbonnet has the potential to have a good season this year. I think Kenneth Walker, Ty, we've seen some inconsistencies from him with injuries, things like that. What are your thoughts on him?
When Kenneth Walker's healthy, he's another guy that just brings a ton to the table,
Yeah.
pass and run game. I'm gonna put him. I think he belongs to the Pro Bowl caliber, tier, right? He is a dog. I'm gonna put him right below Joe Mixon, because I think he has more potential than James Cook just based on the offense that he's in, right? Like with Sam Darnold coming in, I think they'll rely a little bit more on the run game. Um, obviously way more than Buffalo will with James Cook, right? Because that's the Josh Allen show. So I think if Kenneth Walker can stay healthy, he's definitely, a Pro Bowl calendar back. He brings a lot, like I said, in the pass and run game. But it's just, again, it's a story with him. Can he stay healthy? He's had the hip injuries, he's had the ankle injuries. It's like I feel like a lot of these backs, even we talk about them as they get older, getting injured, but it's even those first couple years, right? Can they even stay healthy? Is Charbonnet even right? Like we've
Yeah,
seen this team go through Walker, he gets hurt, then Charbonnet gets hurt, and then they're
they're
with like
just
DJ
scrambling.
Dallas for 3
Yeah.
games, and so it'll be interesting to see. I think Sam Darnold, he's going to need these guys to stay healthy because he's got a good team around him, but he doesn't have Justin Jefferson. So, he's going to be relying on his backs a little bit more.
Yeah, I think he'll have obviously JSN, Cooper Cup. Yeah, like have guys that he can probably rely on, but it's not JJ like you just said. It's not the same. But I think these running backs need to step it up. And as far as availability goes, Kenneth Walker, 100% agree on the Pro Bowl caliber. I think he is above all the guys you put him there above, and we'll see if he's able to stay healthy this year. Next, we got Bucky Irving, a guy that I know Hammer said, I think it was Hammer, or it was either you or Hammer this morning. We were thinking about what the tier should be. Said young stars, put him in there. I'm going to put him in young stars. I'm going to put him above Chuba Hubbard. He's a guy that can do absolutely whatever you need on the football field. He can break absolutely like some of the runs he had against the Saints last year were demoralizing. He would break numerous tackles. I mean, the Saints let what's his face? Oh, let me see. Sean Tucker. We let Sean Tucker go off too, which was extra demoralizing. I think he's talented, but Bucky Irving truly is a great running back, and I'm interested to see what he does this season. I think he is one of the top young stars in the league, but he's still not Ashton Genty at this point in time. I think Ashton Genty's but we haven't seen him yet play in the NFL, so I'll reserve that. But Ty, what are your thoughts?
I love Bucky, and it's remarkable that he was able to just come in and kind of take that backfield away from
Yeah,
Rashad White because Rashad White, the past couple of years really looked like a dog and was going to, be the guy in the backfield for a couple of years. But I mean, I saw a tweet today, and this is a little crazy, but they're like, tell me Bucky Irving's not a top 5 running back right now. I mean,
he
I
could
think
be.
that's a little crazy, but at the end of the next season, I mean,
He could be.
if you told me that Bucky Irving was behind Saquon, Derrick Henry, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Josh Jacobs, I'd be like, okay, right? He brings so much to the table. He's a slippery back. Again, great with his hands. I wanted Denver to draft him so bad last year, and instead we drafted Troy Franklin, and that kills me. But I love Bucky. He's got a lot of
Yeah,
upside, and with that offense just continuing to grow on the outside with Igbuka coming in, Mike Evans, you get Godwin back healthy. Again, the offense just opens up, right? Anytime you have great receivers on the outside, a really good quarterback in Baker Mayfield, K-Dot at tight end, the running game becomes so easy for Bucky Irving,
mhm.
and then he brings in that, the extra element of the passing game. I think we maybe even see Rashad White a little bit less this year because of
Oh,
how
definitely.
strong Bucky came on in that second half of the year. Rashad White could be a trade deadline candidate for some of these teams. Maybe if a back goes down or one of your backs isn't having a lot of success because I think he's a good back too.
Yeah, and even just to add on to that, they drafted Sean Tucker as well after Rashad White was successful. Like I don't think anyone saw that coming, them drafting both of those guys. I think him and Sean Tucker will be the future running backs for that team. And I think Rashad White is definitely a trade piece that is going to be looked at the deadline. Next we got Pollard out of Tennessee. Ty, what are your thoughts on him? I think he's gonna have he to me, I know where I would put him, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like at least serviceable, right?
Yeah.
Like he's fine
Yeah.
to me. I can't put him in the ass. But I think below Aaron Jones. I can't pause. I I'd put him behind Aaron Jones. I think he brings
Yeah.
more to the
Yeah.
table than Jalen Warren. But Aaron Jones, like older back and maybe he's getting a little bit more banged up, but he's super duper consistent. Tony Pollard, we've seen some flashes from him, but nothing's been fantastic. Tajay Spears was taking carries from him a little bit last year. This offense is not great. They have a rookie quarterback. Like the offensive line's middling, so I just don't expect much out of him.
Yeah, no, I was that was exactly where I was gonna put him, and for me, it brings it back to the conversation about Javonte Williams, the Cowboys. It's like, you put anyone in that Cowboys scheme and they can really succeed, and we saw it with Pollard. He was really successful for the Cowboys, went to the Titans, was still alright, was still a serviceable running back, but he wasn't like a Pro Bowl guy, which a lot of people thought he could have been, like when he was on the Cowboys producing what he was doing down there. Next, the final running back we're going to talk about, and maybe it might be two actually. We got Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. Ty, for these two, I would say Brian Robinson Jr. is obviously, I think, still the running back one. I was surprised they didn't go and possibly get a running back because I think Robinson Jr. kind of slacked at the end of the year last year. Eckler, obviously, we see him doing. He has a chunk play every once in a while. I mean, you see the vet presence from him, things like that in the running back room. Brian Robinson Jr. is the RB1. I'd put him. I don't think I can't put him in that young star right now. I don't think I can. He could have been if he played like he did the start of the year all year long. I'd put him right below James Conner at the moment because I think he really left a lot to be desired from last season. I'll check his game log again, but after he started off the year, seemed to be scoring at a relatively high rate, and then he just backed off from it. And I think the running game still should have been pretty good. I think they had a solid offensive line. I think the running scheme was still good. I just didn't see what I wanted from him the rest of the season. Some injuries, things like that. What are your thoughts on him, Ty? Where would you put him?
Yeah, I was gonna put him behind Aaron Jones because like he started the season really hot, but that second half of the season, man, was just bad. Like he
Yeah,
came into this offseason as besides like ETN, uh, and I guess Stevenson and Warren, like as one of the most replaceable backs,
yeah,
starting backs. And with Warren and Stevenson, right? With Warren, they lost Najee. Stevenson, it's a bad team. ETN's a bad team. Like this is a team that was in the NFC Championship game. You had a rookie quarterback who was rookie of the year, who was insane all
yeah,
season long. You have to support him, right? They went out and got Debo. They improved the offensive line, but the run game is so important. We saw it in the beginning of the year how important Brian Robinson was to, and Eckler as well, to Jane Daniels. And then the second half of the season, it really just had to become the Jane Daniels show, right? Like couldn't trust his backs to do much of anything. Couldn't even trust him to hold on the ball at important times. I think there was a game where Brian Robinson like fumbled twice early on in the
there
game.
was a couple, yeah, or
Yeah,
yeah,
so
a
it's
couple
just like,
fumbles.
you have this young star of a quarterback, you don't go out and support him in the run game. I think it was a huge mistake. I hope that Robinson can bounce back and, show us what he did in the early half of last year, but it just was and Eckler too, right? Eckler looked pretty good to start. I was like, "Damn, okay, he's got a little pep in his
Exactly.
step." And then the
Yeah,
whole thing fell off in the second half of the year.
yeah.
And some people
Made no sense. Sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, you're good. I mean, some people maybe blame it on Cliff Kingsbury, but again, I don't think this was a Kingsbury situation. The knock on him was like, okay, second half of the year he sucks at play calling, but I think this was more about the backs itself.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think both of those guys showed so much potential to start the year, and they really struggled. And we saw in some of the big games. I believe it was the Eagles game where both of them were really struggling in that one too. And obviously, the Eagles had one of the best defenses in the league, especially in the run game. But they just didn't do anything. Like there was a lot to be desired from them in the second half of the season in the playoffs. So maybe Robinson takes a leap this year. But I mean, I'll say this: coming out from getting shot in the leg and being a solid running back, it's impressive. And I will say props to him for starting the big hat trend across sports. That is like the most insane thing. I have one in my room now because of Brian Robinson Jr. decided to wear a hat one day in the locker room. So it's funny that he started that trend, but um, we'll see how it plays out this season. Anyways, that'll do it for this episode. Closing thoughts, real quick. I think, I mean, these tiers are pretty solid. All pro, Pro Bowl caliber, young stars, serviceable, promising prospects, and ass for everyone listening. Feel free to check it out. I'll post a screenshot on Twitter in probably like a week or something like that after the episode comes out. But Ty, I think this is a solid list. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I just like this is a good list, and I think coming into the season, the young guys from last year and this rookie class from this year, all of those guys really have a chance to bounce into that Pro Bowl
Mm-hmm.
caliber type of. We talked about it a lot. This back class was loaded, and then guys like Bucky Irving from last year, Tyron Tracy, right, really really showed out. So I'm excited to see what these young guys can do.
Yeah, and I'll say this really quick. I think I want to see how long these older running backs can really hold on to the face of the position, because we've been talking about the last few seasons now, or when are these young running backs going to take over the face of the position? I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs, even Barkley and Henry overpassed him, even though he was balling out at an extremely high level. So I want to see how long these vets can hold on to that, and see if they can really turn it around from running backs being a dead position that no one really cares about in the league, of the thoughts of, oh, we shouldn't pay them, they're not worth it after 4 years, and they're really putting up a fight against that. So I want to see how that plays out. I'm excited to see how these running backs do this season. But that'll do it. You guys know where to check us out on all social medias at Jenks Island, and check us out wherever you get your podcasts at Jenks Island as well. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys want to change anything in the tiers, comment that down below too. And we will see you guys next week.